Alright guys, this is the homework that is going to be due tomorrow. So they ask you to do, with these 2 points, several types of equation. All of these are on your formula chart. So this actually should be point slope, and I typed it backwards. So point slope is the y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. Okay? So from here you have 2 points. So the very first thing you need to know, or you need to do, is get the slope, because it's not given. But you have 2 points. And you know that slope is difference in the y's over difference in the x's. So here will be plus 30, and here will be minus 25. So the slope would be 30 over negative 25, which makes it 6 over 5 negative. Doesn't matter where you put the negative, like the whole fraction is negative. So I know that my m would be negative 6 over 5. Okay, now I just need the rest. I can pick whichever point I want out of these 2, it doesn't matter. So I'll pick this first one, the 5, negative 10. So my x1 would be 5 and my y1 would be negative 10. Okay? So from here, I would do y1 negative 10, and then x1 would be 5. And then I'll bring everything down. Here, every time you have a negative, you'll notice that with the formula, you'll end up with the double negative, because the formula has a negative, and that one had a negative. So there's 2 of them. So this simplifies into a positive. Over here, we distribute. Negative 6/5 times x. That one's easy because it's a variable times a number, so you just put them together. Negative 6/5 times negative 5, if that's confusing to you, do it here on the side. So negative 6/5 times negative 5, and you can put it over 1, to multiply. You can either multiply across, or you can cancel out the 5s and multiply like that. Doesn't matter. If you multiply across, you have 30 over 5 positive, and that makes it 6. Okay? So right here, I'm effectively done. Actually, I was done over here. Okay, you can leave it like that, or you can do it with the also with the parentheses before you even distribute. So if you left it like this for this question, this is also correct. Okay, because they just want you to do it in point slope formula. Over here, they want it in standard form. So I'll pick it up where I left it off. And then over here, I want it in slope intercept. So standard is ax plus by equals c, and slope intercept is y equals mx plus b. Okay? Same point, same equation. I'm going to start first with c, because where I left it off over here, it's easier to go to c than to go to b from here. Okay, so I'm going to start with that. Over here, I left off like this. And I want it in slope intercept form. Okay, so that means I need to solve for y. Y needs to be by itself. So all I need to know now is move the 10 over by zeroing it out. The inverse of positive 10 is negative 10. And then over here, minus 4. So that would be letter C. For letter B, that I'm going to do it in standard, I'm going to start with this, right? It's the same equation we're working on. But now I want it in this format. Notice that the x and the y are on the left side. So I got to move this x over to the left. So I'll do inverse operations. Here I'm going to run out of room, so I'm going to write it on the side. So this together, I cannot combine like terms. And remember, I want the x first. So I'll write the x first. So I have 6/5 x plus y, because the y is positive, and it equals negative 6. Or sorry, negative 4. Okay? It's the same thing as here. I just ran out of room. So I wrote it up here. Okay? Because I ran out of room. So now I have the x and the y on the same side, so I should be done. Okay, but remember that for standard form, the leading coefficient, meaning the first coefficient, a, right, the a, cannot be a fraction or a negative. This one's a fraction. That means that I have to do something, so it's not a fraction. Okay, So when you do that, when you want to eliminate a fraction, you look at the denominator. The denominator is 5, so that means I could multiply the whole thing, and I mean every term on both sides, so the equation remains true, by that 5 to remove it. So everything times 5. Okay, so that means that these two cancel out. That was the whole purpose of me doing that. So I'm left with the 6. 5 times y would be 5y. And over here, 5 times negative 4 would be negative 20. So that would be standard form. Okay, in the back, I got to change this to slope-intercept. So if I forget what that means, I look at my formula chart on the test, and then I see that this is slope-intercept form. So y equals. So I got to solve for y. So my first step always is to move the x over. So the inverse would be minus 3x. So then I have 2y, because that's zeroed out, equals negative 3x plus 8 on that side. I still don't have y alone. I have to isolate it by inverse operation. Here they're together like this. That means it's a multiplication. So the inverse of multiply by 2 would be to divide by 2. Here I'm going to do it to every term so I don't get confused and I can simplify easier. So I'll have negative 3/2 x and then plus 4. And that would be my answer. Okay, the last part on this homework for today was to do this in standard form. If I forget on the test what is standard form, I look it up in my formula chart and I know that this is it. So that's when the x and the y are both on the left side. Okay, so over here I feel like I need to undo this, so I need to distribute first to clear it up. So I have y minus 7, 2x plus 2 when I distribute. Okay, so it's looking more and more like that. I know that my constants need to be on the right hand side, and I have that 7 over here, so I'm going to move that 7. And now it looks like I have y equals, but that's not what I want. I want standard form. This x needs to be on the left. So I'm going to do the inverse of that. So minus 2x minus 2x. The zero's out on the side. And now I have the x and the y on the same side. Oops. Okay. Now it seems like I'm done. I have the x and the y on the left and the constant on the right. However, one more time, the leading coefficient cannot be a fraction, which is not, or a negative. So cannot be fraction or a negative. So how do I get rid of this minus 2? Well, it'd be great if I could multiply this by a negative 1 or divide by a negative 1 and then make that a positive. But if I do that to one thing, I have to do it to all the terms. So I'm going to multiply every term by negative 1. And then I have my answer. This would be the standard form of that line.